he just rubbished the royal family. I mean, you can't rubbish the king's wife, Camilla, and expect to be easily forgiven. You can't rubbish William's wife and be easily forgiven. Are you saying Meghan tells Harry what to do? Oh.
No, I'm not saying that, Arthur.
You're allowed to say that.
How dare you say it?
When things were really not going at all well, she used to dread these royal family Christmases, and sometimes she escaped even before lunch.
Hi, I'm Matt Wilkinson and welcome to Royal Exclusive. In the studio with me today is Editor-in-Chief of Majesty Magazine and royal biographer Ingrid Seward, as well as legendary Sun Royal photographer Arthur Edwards. Ingrid, can I quickly speak to you about Prince Harry? There was an interview, I don't know if you've seen, at the weekend. He was at an event, I think he was as an author, he was kind of invited as a kind of to speak, and he was talking about the media, which is one of his favourite topics, but he did mention that he was aware of some of the kind of debate or some of the kind of gossip about his and the Duchess of Sussex's relationship. And I think he made a line saying, or I've read places or I've read online, you know, that we've meant to have divorced 10 times before or that we've moved house 10 times. I was surprised that Prince Harry ended up being drawn into talking about the gossip, that it is just gossip. You know, we know that they've been spending a lot of time apart, but it's just gossip as to, you know, this rumour about them kind of, you know, splitting up or anything like that. What did you think about Harry's comments? Were you as surprised as I was that he entertained that in a discussion point?
No, I wasn't surprised. No, I think because Harry, as far as we know, reads an awful lot that's written about him, and he gets very frustrated by it. And he's also, together with Meghan, got this campaign to stop trolls being so cruel, especially to children. So it is at the forefront of his mind, and obviously he's irritated by the fact. Or maybe he's not even irritated. He'd just say, I'm supposed to have got divorced several times and moved house several times. Maybe it was more of a throwaway line than an absolute moan. But I think he probably wanted to make it clear that, you know, that everything was actually pretty rosy in the marriage, not as it has been reported. Because as we know, Harry has a continual ongoing war, I suppose, Harry's war with the press.
The reason why those rumours started was because they started doing separate engagements. They separated their what they do in America, their events, and you know, every time he's been here, he normally was a fuss, but now he just comes in and goes quickly, gets on with it and does it, and but never with her. And
well, he's got this ongoing thing with the government about security, and saying that he can't bring his wife and children because it's not secure, so he can't really suddenly turn up with them because that weakens his case. He's very tunnel visioned, Harry. He just goes for it, and he goes for the jugular, and he won't let go.
It's the vocalising it for me. It's actually going on record and talking about, you know, rumours about, you know, well, we're meant to have divorced 10 times already this year. Like, well, what's happened to the late Queen's mantra of never explain, never complain? I mean, is that gone out the window now, do you think?
Well, I think Charles used to, you know, make jokes about things. Okay. He did, but I think it's an icebreaker, really. And the Queen would never, ever do it because she was kind of above all that. But certainly Prince Charles, when he was Prince of Wales, he used to make a lot of jokes about you know, he's talking to his vegetables and you know, things like that. He made jokes about it. I think it is an icebreaker, and I feel that Harry was probably making a bit of a joke about this.
Well, Prince Charles might not have complained, but he certainly gave me a few telling offs in my time, you know, so he certainly made it very clear to me a couple of times it wasn't all hunky-dory. I mean, you know, he used to get upset about way Diana was, you know, really hounded by the media.
And then he used to say, I need 2 wives, one for each side of the road.
One for each side of the road, yeah, because she was so popular, yeah. But no, he used to get quite fractious sometimes about things like that, but that's how it is, you know. And Harry can do nothing right at the moment. I mean, whatever he says is interpreted in some way or other. You know, ever since he left this country, you know, the split's become huge between the royal family here and him, and us and him, and the media and him, and it's mainly because he just rubbish the royal family. I mean, you can't rubbish the king's wife, Camilla, and expect to be easily forgiven. You can't rubbish William's wife and be easily forgiven. It's just...
Also, the Americans too, Arthur. I know that because I've spoken to a lot of them about this. It's the fact that he rubbished his own family, and Americans are very family-oriented. That's their roots.
And for profit. And, you know, and that's really what... That rankles with me, because Harry wasn't down to his last 30 bob, you know, when he had plenty of money. No, exactly. We don't need to do that.
He didn't need the money.
No.
But I suppose everyone needs the money, but he didn't really need the money.
No. It's interesting, a couple of minutes ago, you made the point saying that people will, you know, everything he says, that everyone kind of reports on it. And he actually made that point in this interview where he said, well, I'm sure everyone will start commenting on everything that I've said. But we haven't on this interview, weirdly. It hasn't really been picked up very much. Maybe we're just getting a little bit tired. We've kind of heard it all before, and there's more important things going on here. Now, this week, I think the biggest event this week was Prince William meeting Donald Trump. I'm going to correct myself there. It's actually Donald Trump meeting Prince William. And what I mean by this is Donald Trump went to see Prince William in Paris. It was at the British Embassy. William was late because of the storms in the UK, and Donald Trump had to come after the Notre Dame ceremony to meet William. The palace are at pains to kind of point out that Prince William is maybe becoming, or hoping to become, a global statesman. Him going over to Paris to meet Donald Trump instead of the King, what do we make of that? Where does that put William on a global scale now?
Well, I think William already is a global statesman, and I saw that when he went to Israel. He was outstanding there. You know, he was absolutely like the perfect diplomat. But I think, you know, Donald Trump is going to be the next president of America, and a lot of people in this country are concerned about that. But it was elected. They were elected by the people of America, and that's fine. And I think William, like the Prime Minister, has embraced that man, and the fact that we've got to work with him. And of course, when he came to England on a state visit when he was president last time, he praised the Queen, how much he liked the Queen, how much he liked the royal family. And I think that just reflects what he was with William. I think with William, you know, William's going to be the king one day, God willing. And I think Trump was just being really nice. And he's got that nice side to him. I experienced it once when I photographed him, and he was absolutely charming. So in spite of, you know, what we've seen in the build-up to the election and some of the things he's been saying on the stump, in fact, he can have a charming side to him, and I think that's worked with William.
There's no one that Arthur hasn't met.
Exactly.
You've even met Trump.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I spoke to people who were there, because it was a small, tight little group. They were in the Salon Jaune, the yellow room at the ambassador's residence, and they said that Trump and his team were actually quite reverential, very polite, very respectful, and he treats the royal family in a certain way. But it's important that that our royal family, William and the King, have a good relationship with the President-elect of the United States.
I think it certainly is. I mean, certainly our Labour government doesn't seem to have a very good relationship with the President. And he's such an Anglophile, Trump. He loves everything British, or certainly because his mother was Scottish, and he says that's what he talked to the late Queen about. And William is young. He's perfect as a global ambassador for the UK and above politics, supposedly. So he's the perfect person to talk to Trump, and apparently they talked for about 40 minutes, which is a long time. And I am certain somehow he would have got in about climate change, because it is William's big thing. And we understand that Trump doesn't believe in climate change. So William would have found a subtle way of getting it in, I'm sure.
But that's right. So I think we had 40 seconds, I think, of their meeting, and I think Trump said that William was a good man, a tall man, I think he referenced, and later he described how William was a handsome man. Yeah. So they clearly got on, but we don't know what was said for the rest of those 40 minutes. So, I mean, anything could have been discussed between the two. But this is where William now finds himself, standing in for the King, meeting world leaders. I mean, you have both known him basically since he was born. You know, is he a good fit to become, you know, this kind of face of Britain on the world stage?
Well, you took pictures of him as a baby, didn't you?
I did, when he came out of hospital with his mother's arms, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, if you remember, when our King was the Prince of Wales, he used to stand in for the Queen. He'd go to all the overseas funerals, And he did that for years. In fact, he cancelled his wedding to Camilla to go to the Pope's funeral. He didn't cancel it, he put it back a day, sorry. Sorry about that, sir. And he put it back a day because he'd go to the funeral of Pope John Paul II. So they've always been doing that. And of course, you know, the King is lacking energy at the moment. You know, he's just come back from a really long tour of Australia and Samoa, and it was pretty grueling for him. I know because I was there, it was grueling for me too. Yep. But it was, but you know, and it's the right thing for William to do. You know, and we want to see William's going to one day be the head of state, be the monarch, be the, you know, and I think it's right that he should be there meeting these world leaders, and he does it very well.
Well, do you think, because we were told that there was a bit of, it was a last-minute change. I think with things with Donald Trump, they often are kind of last minute when you've got the president-elect. And William was given very short notice to go. The King couldn't make it. Do we think there's anything more than the fact that the King just had a diary clash? He wasn't avoiding the King? Or is there a protocol where the King might have to meet the president when he becomes the president? I mean, why William instead of the King, Arthur?
I think because William was available to go, and probably the King had too much on his plate. And also, look, you know, he's energy with him at the moment. You know, he's only got so much energy, and it was a sort of in and out visit, and perhaps he felt, you know, maybe it was for William to do.
I think absolutely. I think William is definitely the right person to do this. And as Arthur said, you know, when he was younger, Charles did a lot of these things for the Queen, and it was a Sunday, and you know, he probably needed to rest up, but I'm sure it wasn't as last minute as the palace made out, because there would have been quite a lot of arrangements to be made.
Absolutely.
And I mean, ever since he was a kid, a little boy, William has always been so polite and, you know, very thoughtful. And I remember Diana saying, you know, that William would actually think, and he'd be very, and you know, he'd be very polite, and he'd shake hands with people. The only person he was rude to was Bob Geldof. Do you remember?
Well, and also he was also
his hair was messy,
very circumspect with him as well. You know, with Harry's brother, I remember when they were learning to ski. Within 20 minutes, Harry was like flying, and William was crying. I mean, he just couldn't get hold of it. I mean, he's just a bit, he's not adventurous like that. But
he thinks before he acts,
does, yeah.
and Harry acts before he thinks.
Well, I mean, I think it's quite well known that Harry and Donald Trump, or Harry and Meghan and Donald Trump, don't particularly get on. I wonder if those conversations took place in the 40 minutes.
I think Meghan don't get on with him. That's probably why Harry don't get on with him. I don't think, you know, I mean, Harry's he's a pretty affable guy, you know, and he would, if it was necessary, he'd obviously get on with him. You know, if he was now working with the royal family and Donald Trump made an official visit here, Harry would do his job and do it properly.
Well, that's the importance. It's like with William not expressing opinions about world leaders means that he can go in and have a 40-minute chat, and Donald Trump is reverential and he's representing the UK. I mean, that's the reason why they don't come out with statements or comments that Harry and Meghan have done about Trump in the past. But that's probably me just talking about.
You're dealing with the President of the United States, a very powerful, you know, role. I mean, you're dealing with the President of the United States. It's not about a person who's the President. It's, you know, he's elected representative of the, you know, most powerful country in the world and leader of the free world. So he's a man you should respect and cater for.
Well done, William.
Well done, William. Yeah, top marks.
Well there.
Top marks, William.
Top marks. One thing that I did read afterwards, that Donald Trump had done an interview, I think, in the United States, and he spoke about this private conversation that he'd had with William in the ambassador's residence, and he said that William had told him that the King was fighting very hard, you know, amid his cancer. What do we take from that? What do you read into that, Arthur?
Well, I think the latest news I've heard is that the King is well, you know, he's winning the battle. But you know, it is a battle. I mean, cancer's not it's a nasty thing, and it doesn't discriminate. And I think I saw him recently, and he looked in pretty good shape. Listen, I think about that with that treatment he gets. I think that does require a lot of energy, and I think that's his problem. And but he's, you know, he just can't stop him. I mean, as Camilla said recently, you know, if only he'd do what the doctors told him, he'd be all right.
And also, he now has all his kingly duties as well, the duties of monarch. Oh. And, you know, appointments every 20 minutes at Buckingham Palace during the day. So he has an awful lot more on his plate than he had before, and so he has to pace himself, and he's not very good at that.
Yeah, I remember speaking to someone a couple of months ago and said, how's he coped, with having to step back from work? I said, well, actually, he's not stopped working, but because he's staying at home sitting in front of a desk, and he's actually working more because he's reading the government papers, dealing with correspondence. And, just because you haven't seen him as much over the summer, he was working much harder, actually sat, behind his desk, which I thought was typical King Charles. This week, I was at a job where William went to it was a fun event. It was a Christmas event. He met some family members of a regiment down on Salisbury Plain, and he gave out some presents, and he was really good fun. He went from table to table, bringing lots of Christmas joy. One thing he did say, which did surprise me, he let slip to some of the tables that on Christmas Day at Sandringham, there'll be 45 people, 45 family members around the Christmas table, which brings all sorts of images into my mind about what Christmas Day is going to be like. Do you guys have any insights into what a royal family Christmas is like on the day at Sandringham?
I do, actually, because I wrote a book called Royal Style, and I think a lot of the information I got was from people that worked in the various royal residences, and they all pull crackers and put on hats, but except the Queen never did. And I presume that Charles probably won't.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know.
He's already got a crown, hasn't he?
He's already got a crown, so I think...
Got a couple, actually.
And in the Queen's day, anyone sort of that couldn't actually hold a knife and fork, i.e. the children, had to have lunch upstairs in the nursery. But I think all the children that will be there, which would include, Fergie's grandchildren, I think probably they won't be there, they're too young.
Okay.
But so there was an age limit, but I think they've probably changed that a bit. But
and also they exchange their presidents in Christmas Eve, don't they?
So they get all that over.
Which is apparently a European tradition.
Is it Norwegian?
Is it? Yeah. And they do that, and then of course they have the lunch. And then, for many years, our Queen Camilla, she would leave after lunch and go and spend time with her own family down in Wiltshire.
And Diana used to always leave after lunch.
Well, Diana went, yes, she did actually. Not always, but a few times I remember, I remember her passing me on the motorway going back once. Yeah.
When things were really not going at all well, she used to dread these royal family Christmases. And she would always, and sometimes she escaped even before lunch, I think. Did the church.
Yeah.
Well, there are lots of ins and outs.
There's
Sarah
lots of ins
Ferguson
and outs.
hadn't been there for a while, and then we saw her at the Christmas walk last week, didn't we? When she went to church. Prince Andrew will be there. He's part of the family. But there are kind of ins and outs where people, are banished for a couple of years and then return. But I'm fascinated by the seating plan. Do you have any insights? If there's 45 people, do you have any insights like who decides where anyone sits?
I think it must be. I imagine, the King will sit where he wants, and that'll be the head of the table. So
the middle, they usually sit in the middle.
Wherever you sit, he's the head of the table, isn't he? So, and I think that it's a family. I don't think, do they dress up for it?
Yes, they do, actually. Not in... but they're smart from church.
Smart, yeah.
They're wearing their smart clothes. And then the Queen always used to do a plasmor very carefully. Now, whether King Charles does that or not, I don't know. I suspect that Camilla does the plasmor. Camilla is a great hostess. She would know exactly how to do it. So it's much easier when you've got that many people to have, they'd have their names on a board.
Right.
Not a board like we see at sort of events, but like a beautiful leather board, and you slide the names in and out. Do you see what I mean?
I'm just wondering if there's any people like moving names around.
Oh, yes, they probably... I don't want to sit next to them. Yeah.
No, it'll be very exciting. Obviously, you'll be there on Christmas Day.
Well, as many years I do it. One year I remember we were up there and it was Zara Phillips had a tongue piercer with a stud. And everybody's desperate. We're all desperate to get this picture of the tongue, you see. And then I'm driving back to London and the office rang and said, have you got a picture of Princess Anne? I said, no, the story's about Zara Phillips and the stud. No, have you got a picture of Princess Anne? So I said, no, and I got on the phone, rang all the other photographers. Have you got a Princess Anne? I rang the guy from the Mail. He said, no, it's all about Zara Phillips. I said, no, but have you got Princess Anne? No. Rang the Mirror, rang the Express, no. And apparently it turned out that as she got a bouquet, Princess Anne, as she got a bouquet of one of the visitors, she said, I've been up all night making this for you. And Princess Anne said, you must be mad. And that was the story, And so, although it's there's some, the stars of the royal family are there, obviously, Catherine and William and the children, and our king and queen. But sometimes the story's elsewhere, and I missed it, I'm afraid. But someone got a picture somewhere.
That's got to be a first, Arthur.
Well, I wish it was, but it's not.
But no, the amazing thing is that when I've been there, that people are there from about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
People come from, I've met people from America and Canada that have come over.
There's a big Air Force base near there as well, American Air Force Base. They come from there, yeah. But it is a great day. I quite enjoy it. It's a great occasion. Everybody's very festive.
What do you do afterwards, Arthur? Do you go and have a drink with everybody?
No, I go and see a family that I've known up there for years. Really, really, lovely people. And I just go to have a mince pie and a cup of tea with them. And I go to, we have lunch with one of my children afterwards. Yeah, but the thing is, it's a great day because, like for instance, Sarah Ferguson was there this year, but what people don't know, she was there the year before, but she didn't go to church. And but slowly, she's been, and Andrew come and walks with her. And I think the king, this is Christmas, it's a family time, and he wants all the family there. And I think that's the most amazing thing. It is for all of us. People travel all over the country just to be with the family for Christmas, and I think that's just.
And they're not going to turn the invitation down.
And who's going to say no? Yeah.
Well, 45. It says it's all about family.
Well, good luck. Good luck with the chef anyway. He's got plenty of turkeys.
Now I've got a confession to make, Ingrid. I've been a dereliction of duty. I've not watched Prince Harry's polo show, which is called Polo. A lot of imagination, I think, has gone into the name of that. But it's part of their, Netflix deal. Will be running out soon. They've got an awful lot of money to produce this show. Well, they're co-producers. Archwell are kind of behind the camera. We see Harry and Meghan, I believe, very briefly. You are a big polo fan. Tell me you've seen the 5-part series and you can tell us if it's any good or not.
I have seen the 5-part series, and I think unless you're knowledgeable a bit about polo, it would be very dull. I was quite interested because it showed the Campioso, the father and son, who are the best polo players in the world, but that interested me. But I think where it missed out is there's such a backstory about polo. And people love animals. Where do the horses come from? How are they trained? How are they looked after? There was none of that. It was like the housewives of America.
Are you disappointed that Harry and Meghan are not in it? Or is the point that they're not in it because they're being less controversial, that they're behind the camera? Are you disappointed that that Harry, for instance, wasn't front and centre playing polo?
Well, he did play. There was a bit of him playing polo and a bit of him talking to people. And Meghan appeared and spoke to Campioso, who's this amazing Argentine player, in Spanish, and sort of did a lot of wiggling about that. And then he asked, does Harry speak Spanish? And Meghan said, yes. And Harry said, no. Quite honestly, it wasn't exciting.
No, I can't stand polo. I must have been to 1,000 games, and I can't bear the game.
It's not a spectator sport, is it?
It's not. They're great pictures. There's some wonderful pictures at polo. One of the best pictures I've ever taken, but it wasn't the game. Although I did photograph him. I didn't photograph him. I was in Sydney once, and he fell off his polo pony, and I spent all day tracking down someone who had the picture of him falling off. So that was a bit of an event. But normally, I couldn't bear the game. It was 7 chukkers or 7 minutes, 4 chukkers. I was watching the clock.
The only times I've go to watch polo is because they often have a good bar. And maybe that's the point. There's often some nice champagne.
In the days when Diana used to go to the polo, and again, William as a little boy, there was wonderful photographs, which probably you got, Arthur.
Oh, well.
Of William, kicking up a bit. He was probably very bored.
Oh, yeah, I've got a picture of him crying and Nanny scolding him, yeah. Oh, yeah, William crying up there. And also her walking along, she would tread a fashion out there. I remember once she had polka dot socks on.
Yes, I remember.
And she'd say, what do you think of my polka dot socks, she'd say, or she wear culottes, She was a fashion icon, and I can always remember her at the polo, looking through Hello magazine to see if she was in there, So she was obviously very aware that she was, the main topic of the magazine.
And then she would use polo against Charles and say, he'd say, well, I'm going to take the boys to watch polo. She said, no, I'm taking them to Tetbury. So that was one of her little angles, when they were really getting on very badly. She always had the winning card.
So why has Harry chosen polo, do you think? I mean, we're saying it's not particularly entertaining. I mean, people will watch it because it's got their name attached to it, maybe. But why have they chosen this show, do you think?
I suppose because Harry is a polo player and he's a very good rider. And he's a pretty good polo player. And I suppose he has the in with all these Argentine players that are so good. But most people in the world have never heard of them.
And also, we were talking that story about Diana. I remember at a reception with Diana in Cairo, and I asked her if she was going to the polo next year. This was about May time, going to the polo. She said, no, she said, I don't like the game, she said, and the boys don't like the game, and she said, and it's a waste of valuable family time. June the 1st, the editor says to me, picture editor, you go to polo? I said, well, she's not going. Got a call from my son about 4 o'clock. She's here, Dad. And fortunately, he helped me out with the pictures. But, that was it. I mean, she would say one thing and then do another.
That was Diana, though,
yeah, it was her, though, yeah.
Yeah, she'd say one thing to one person, one to another.
Yeah, and she said that to me.
Wait and see what happened.
I hate the game, she said. I think it spoils.
And the boys don't like it, but both boys ended up being really good players.
Well, yeah, very good, yeah. But he wasn't a bad player, Prince Charles. I mean, he played all over the world. I mean, I photographed him playing polo in Australia, in New Zealand, in Africa. He just loved the sport.
And he used to say it was a release against all the stresses of his everyday life and his work of being Prince of Wales and all the things he had to do. Playing polo was a big release for the sort of pent-up frustration.
And if you look at the King's face, he's got a scar here. That's a polo scar. He had badly... He broke
Florida,
his arm.
Wasn't it?
No,
wasn't the scar from when he... Anyhow.
He fell off. He fell off,
falls.
and a horse kicked him, and he had his scar. And then I remember in Florida, I was photographing him playing polo. He was rushed to hospital with heat exhaustion. Another time, he broke his arm, and I remember a picture of him coming out of the hospital at Cheltenham with Diana and his arms in a sling, and it was such a bad break. He had to go reset up in Nottingham at a specialist hospital there.
And it still hurts him.
Yeah. So, it was, it's a rough old sport.
Well, so there's so much royal family connections, through polo, through the years. Are you surprised that Harry didn't draw on the royal family connections, apparently for this polo show, or are we kind of relieved that he seems maybe to have moved on from speaking about the royal family?
But if he's moved on and it's dull...
Yeah.
I can't see that the Netflix viewing figures are going to be huge on that at all.
It's a shame because I think Harry's a great orator. I think he's he's very good. I mean, he was when he worked here, when he worked for the royal family here. I mean, he was always interesting. Even in the private conversations, he thinks about things, and I would Netflix probably, didn't want him.
Maybe Meghan had a bigger hand in it because she obviously knows very
little
about it.
Are you saying Meghan tells Harry what to do? Oh.
No, I'm not saying that, Arthur.
You're allowed to say that.
How dare you say it?
Arthur, I want to move on to Queen Camilla. I was a bit shocked. Last week I was away on holiday, but I was a bit shocked to hear that she did say that she has pneumonia or had pneumonia, struggling with pneumonia, and that she can't quite shake off this chest infection. You've seen her lately?
I have indeed.
How is she?
I have indeed. Well, she says she can't shake it off. It reoccurs. It gets better, and then it comes back again, and she's no energy. But I have to say, I went to the French embassy last week when she was awarding a literary prize with Madame Macron, the wife of the French president. And I remember the last time I photographed them was playing table tennis in Paris. And I remember Madame Macron winning, and afterwards speaking to the Queen about it, she said, I can get my serve right. I couldn't get my serve right. And I've got a lovely picture of her, the ball going up in the air, and Madame Macron, and And then I photographed them, two of them together, and I said to Macron, you know, I said, you're a very good table tennis player. And after the Queen left, she came over to me and she said, the trouble with, she says, everywhere I go, people want me to play table tennis. And on my Twitter feed, I put the picture of them two together and the picture from Paris of Camilla knocking the ball up in the air. So
I remember this we talk about France, and
Yeah.
we were told, Camilla used to be a very good table tennis player.
Yeah.
So I think it was more of a kind of a diplomatic incident or a diplomatic way of Camilla letting Madame Macron win, maybe.
Well, that could be the case, but she said, you know, I couldn't get my serve right. I mean...
So Camilla is the best, or
Camilla,
Macron?
yeah. I've photographed her playing table tennis before, you know, youth club events, you know, when she... I mean, she was quite a good player, but obviously, you know, lack of practice. Not many table tennis tables up at
There's
Clarence
one at Clarence House, is
no.
there, for a table tennis table?
No.
Yeah, it'd be exciting. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good friendship they've got there, isn't it, Matt?
Well,
We're talking
absolutely.
about William and Trump,
Yeah.
or William going out and being a kind of global statesman.
Yeah, well,
Bridget Macron and Camilla do seem to be quite close.
That's right, and also it was all about literary, you know, which of course Camilla's fascinated about. No, it was a very nice event, and both two stylish ladies, you know, they got on like a house on fire. Well, had a good old gossip, I suppose, you know.
Just one quick thing that jumped into my mind was about Christmas Day. We're going to be sitting around, or you might be, you know, with some friends. We'll be sitting around watching the King's speech. He'll be doing the address soon. They'll be filming it. And I'm just wondering, have you got any thoughts of what you might hope to hear the King talk about in his Christmas Day address? Because it is a really important, you know, still to listen to the sovereign sit down on Christmas Day. We all sit around with our mince pies after or before our huge lunch and listen to him talk. Have you got any idea what he might say or what you hope he says?
Well, certainly if you go by what his mother used to say, there's always a big religious element because he is, you know, the head of the Church of England and he's a defender of the faith. So he can't just talk about the disasters in the world, of which there have been so many. But if you look back over the speeches, over the years, there's always been the floods and famine and fire. And I think he will do the religious message, and then I think it'll be one of closeness and love and community. They all have a theme. It's just Charles is a brilliant speech maker.
You know,
he delivers it so well.
I mean, last year his speech was the #1 show on Christmas Day. He got the most viewers. Listen, I just hope in some way he can, probably won't do it, but I'd just like him to sort of reassure us about his health in many ways, you know, give us some sort of, because every time I go anywhere, people say, you know, how is the king, you know, and all I can say, well, he looked pretty good today, you know, and I just hope he might not, I mean, but they'll obviously probably mention the climate change, you know, the fact that you know, we're expressing, I mean, bad weather here now like everybody else is in the world, and I think you might go about that, yeah, but I'd like him to say, you know, I'm doing pretty well with the treatment, you know. That would be nice, because a lot of people suffering from cancer.
He might say something.
And you know, give people, you know, suffering from cancer. A dear friend of mine just been diagnosed with cancer. Give them sort of a bit of comfort to know that, you know, there is a way out of this. You know, there is another way out of it.
Maybe he'll talk more generally about health and things and say that there is a recovery. There is always hope.
That's right. That could be. You know, I'd like him to do that.
A speech for him.
Well, he's recording it this week actually. So.
Well, he might be listening in. He might take some ideas from you.
But it will be good anyway, and you wouldn't want to miss it.
Yeah.
And there was a great line in last year's one when he said, "Put yourself in your neighbour's shoes." You remember that line? I've never forgotten that. It stayed with me all the year long.
Yeah. It's a really good opportunity for, as you say, he'll find a message that he feels important to him and important to the country. Yeah. And I will be looking through the transcript on Christmas Day morning to try and pull out one of the most important lines, and I'll definitely be looking for something like that. I'm sure he has to mention about health and
well, let's hope so, because, you know, I mean, let's hope he's positive, because Catherine looks like she's over it, you know, which is great news, and hopefully he is. You know, I saw him yesterday and I thought he looked pretty good, you know, but he's like the Duracell bunny, you know. He just keeps going, you know. He doesn't need to change the batteries.
Right, guys, we've got time for our quick fire questions. Yeah. Okay, if you're ready. We were talking about Christmas, obviously, this week.
Yeah.
So, who would you most and who would you least like to sit next to at the royal family's Christmas dinner, Ingrid?
Well, I'd like to sit next to the king, but I expect a lot of people would too.
That would make you the Queen, though. So.
Well, no, there's another side. I could sit the other side of him.
And who would you least like to sit?
I think I'd least like to sit next to the Duke of Edinburgh, Edward.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Why?
I just think that of all the royal family, he probably would be the hardest to get to gossip. So I'd like to sit next to somebody who was really going to gossip and be a laugh.
Good stuff.
I'll tell you someone who I wouldn't want to sit next to, Princess Anne, because she never said a word to me in all the 45 years I've been working with her. And so I don't expect she'd say too much at the dinner table. But I'd certainly like to sit next to Queen Camilla because she is a woman who never lost a common touch. And she would know what was good on television she'd watch, and we should discuss some series she'd be watching, and it'd be very interesting. She'd be interested in what you do as well and what you're doing. And so I'd love Queen Camilla and probably Princess Anne if I pulled the short straw.
Knowing my luck, I'll be put with the children down at the end of the table.
In another room. In another room.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, £46 million has been set aside for a Queen Memorial in St James's Park. What do you think it should be, this memorial? Have you got any ideas?
I think Arthur and I as one on this. I certainly think that should be a statue, because that's always going to be there. And a fountain.
Well, look,
statue on top of a fountain, a bit like the Queen Victoria Memorial.
Yeah, I was going to say the Queen Victoria Memorial. I mean, it's massive, and yet the Queen, outreigned Victoria, and she was like for 70 years, never put a foot wrong, and it was an amazing monarch. And I think it should be bigger than that, And it should have
those people who don't know, that's right outside,
right opposite
Palace.
Buckingham
You see
Palace.
that right
the
outside
big white statue.
Yeah.
We call it the Victoria Memorial, but it's.
Well,
I
you
think
have stood for many events.
many times.
Many events.
Yeah, I have, yeah. But I think it should be massive, and really do. And I don't care how much money they spend. I mean, they spent all that money on that fountain for Diana. It turned out to be a bit of a disaster. I mean, it's a beautiful idea, and when it was finished, it was lovely. But every time I've been there, it seems to be closed.
Well, it's a location for me. It needs to be near Buckingham Palace
Yeah,
for
so
something
they
about
can
the
go,
Queen, rather than in a corner of a...
And also, if you look out the window at Buckingham Palace, I think you'd want to see it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Right, it's coming towards the end of the year. So who has been your hero of the year? And, if you're able to, who has been your villain of the year?
I think the unsung hero of the year is actually Sophie,
OK.
the Duchess of Edinburgh, because she just gets on with things. She always looks amazing. And she's had some quite tricky jobs that she's done this year, and I think she's done them absolutely brilliantly.
She did a wonderful job to Africa, Sudan and Chad. That we had a reporter out there covering that, where she was meeting people in refugee camps. It kind of went under the radar, but you're right, she does some wonderful stuff. Yeah. And a villain, Ingrid?
Well, I suppose Andrew's the villain, really, isn't he? I'm sad that he hasn't, found a bit of a way to use his life in a sort of more meaningful way. And I feel very sad for him, but I think he will remain the royal villain until he does something about it. And I don't know what he can do, but to my mind, that just jumps into my mind straight away.
OK. And Arthur, can I draw you on a hero and a villain?
Well, this year, the biggest hero for me was a 99-year-old veteran of Arnhem, Jeff Roberts, who was the only surviving or fittest member to go to Arnhem services. And the people just absolutely adored him, the crowds, the school children. He was an amazing hero to me. And he celebrates his 100th birthday next year, and I'm going to his party. But on the royal front, of course, King, he's put on a magnificent show this year. I mean, in spite of the serious illness he's had. I mean, I remember the day, Easter Sunday, when he, suddenly decided he was going to do a walkabout and it was just amazing. He just did that and embraced it, and the people just went crazy. And in Australia this year, the crowds were huge, and just, this man he's my hero. But as far as a villain, I find it hard to find a villain. Personally, I find if I met any of the people like Andrew, any of them, I'd be nice to them, because they've been nice to me in the past.
Well, that's a good outlook on life, Arthur.
Yeah,
Well,
I can't find a villain, but certainly, you know, Jeff Robertson, I was so... And when he met Princess Anne, he had her laughing and he gave her a medal and she put it in her handbag, you know. Normally
So he would have liked to sit next to her at lunch.
They just would have slung it.
Yeah.
They normally sling it to one of the equerries, but she put it in her handbag and he really charmed her. But I'll never forget the school children. The school children just were fantastic with him. So he was my hero of the year, but Prince Charles, he's battled this cancer and he's just embraced his job and he's just gone for it probably in spite of doctor's orders in many ways, but he's done a great job. So our king, yeah, and not about a villain. No villains for me.
No villains. If I'm allowed to answer these questions, I think sometimes I am. I'm going to say the king. I agree with you. I think that he could have just not worked. He could have not come back. But he showed such bravery. I think in April, May time, I said I'm going to go now. I'm going to go to Australia, and I'm really impressed with him. He's my hero of the year. I agree with you. He just got stuck in. My villains of the year are the Twitter trolls. The Princess of Wales. I thought that was a horrendous time in like February, March, April, where people were just absolutely disgusting online, trying to get clicks. And I think they're my villains of the year, royal villains of the year. But I agree with you with Charles and Sophie, obviously.
Sophie, yeah. Sophie's very special, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, guys. Hopefully we have more heroes, less villains in the future, particularly in next year. But thanks very much for joining me. Right, well, thanks so much for watching. Please do leave your comments below because we do read them. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode.